like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
If I can get this to work right tonight, guys, we will be doing good. And evidently, I sent them the wrong link. So hold on, I have special guests coming, and it's not working. Oh, no. Did I send them the wrong link? I mean, I'm in this live, so let's try this. Okay, so let's do this again. Okay, hold on. Okay. Enter the studio. Hold on, guys, I'm coming. How is everybody while they're backstage working on getting entered into the studio? And I am dealing with my throat again still tonight, guys. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I hope everybody has had a great week. Can y'all hear me? First off, let's not like talk for an hour and then y'all can't hear me. Yeah, and I don't know that they've done StreamYard. So they may not quite. It shows them in the first part before they actually entered. There they are. Hi, guys. How are y'all? Let's see. Let's unmute you. You have to unmute your mic. Let's see. Is it going to let me? It's not going to let me. Okay. There we go. There we are. How are y'all doing?
Enjoying a stormy night.
Yeah, I know. We are only a few miles away from each other. So we are having wonderful weather, guys. And so we're just going to pray internet electricity holds out. So everybody, I want to welcome Rosa and Robbie Calhoun. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. This is Kay Alana's parents, guys. And they're going to tell us a little bit about their beautiful daughter. And we're going to talk about her case. And I'm going to warn y'all ahead of time. It is emotional. It is frustrating. It is all of the things. And it is absolutely sad that we're where we're at with this case. So anyways, why don't y'all tell us about Kay? Let's just jump right in.
Okay, so Kay Alana is one of the sweetest, one of the smartest girls you'll ever meet. She truly loves everybody. And when she was born with a heart condition. And so her young life was mostly spent running back and forth to the doctors and she spent a lot of time in bed. And so because of that, she was a voracious reader, and she loved to read anything that she could get her hands on, because she really couldn't do anything else. And so when she was like 3 years old, she decided, we were watching the National Spelling Bee, and she decided that she wanted to do the National Spelling Bee. And she said, I do that. And I said, what? And she said, I do that. And so then she began studying and doing everything she could to learn spelling words. And I hate reading. I'm a terrible speller. I have dyslexia. And so I would be washing the dishes, and she would say, Mama, can you call spelling words? And I'm like, Kay Alana, I'm washing the dishes. And it didn't matter what I was doing. She wanted me to be calling spelling words. And so the people at our church, and we go to Woodcrest Methodist Church here in Lumberton, and all the people at Woodcrest would do little index cards, and they would write down spelling words, and they would write down the origin and all of this. And they would try every Sunday to stump her with a word. And she just couldn't be stumped. They would just say, I've never seen anybody that can spell as many words as she can. And so that led to her having a love of writing. And her dad is a musician. And so he bought her first guitar when she was very young, and she plays the piano, and just about any instrument that she decides that she wants to play, she was able to pick it up and learn how to do it. So,
people like that make me sick, because I can't play anything. And I've taken piano, and I played the flute in school. It sounded like a broken buzzer beak thing. It was horrible. I cannot play an instrument to save my life. So people that can just pick it up and go with it, it's like.
Very, very talented. She's got a knack for, because she did take piano lessons a little bit when she was young, but she didn't really learn to play the piano from that. It was later, a few years later, when she actually got serious about wanting to play the piano, that I'm sure some of that teaching stuck, and she was using that. But the best way she operates, because of her intelligence level, is to gather information through reading, maybe on YouTube. Nowadays YouTube a lot, but she absorbs information and then puts it to use. And that's how she learned to play the piano, and how she got better at playing guitar. She's a very creative person. She writes beautifully. Probably one of her best skills is editing. She did a lot of that. She actually has worked as an editor at times, helping other kids with their papers and things like that. She did that through school and through college as well. Loves to travel. She's been when she was in college, she did study abroad several times. She's been to France and Spain and Guatemala and Costa Rica, and some other places, Panama Canal.
So just so y'all know, guys, this girl wasn't just smart. How much did she earn in college?
So for her scholarships, when she was in high school, this is just in high school, she earned $3.68 million in scholarships.
That's a lot of money. That's like she worked her butt off. She worked her butt off to earn that. You don't just get that kind of money for nothing. This was a girl that applied herself.
Right. And we homeschooled her from about the time she was 5th grade through the time she went to high school. And in high school, she decided she wanted to try to go. We kind of took her out of school because of her heart condition. She just was struggling to be in class, and she was missing class. And so we made the decision that it would be better to homeschool her. And that way, if she wasn't feeling well, she could sleep. She didn't have to worry about what she was missing at school, because she always caught up with everything. She never was behind, but that just added more stress to her.
Right.
And so we decided to homeschool her. Well, after her final year for the National Spelling Bee stuff, and for that National Spelling Bee, she actually made it to Houston, which is one step below actually going to the National Spelling Bee. She made it there 3 times, and her last time in Houston, she finished 14th.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, she's extremely good at what she did. And so after National Spelling Bee stuff was over, she just decided that she needed a challenge and she wanted to go to school. And so once we went to talk to the school about her coming, and they said, oh, well, because she's homeschooled, she'll be in remedial classes. And I just said, she's not going to come if she's in remedial classes. And the counselor was talking to her, and she said, we have horticulture. That means plants. And Kay Alana kind of looked at me. And so we kept talking. And I just asked the lady, I said, is there any kind of test that she can take so that you can see that she would thrive in high school and that she should be in the AP classes? And the lady said, well, yeah, we've got a test that she can take. She can take the Tx that we have. We'll let her take that and see for her placement. And so when we went out to the car and we sat down in the car and got ready to leave, and she said, Mama, what were you thinking when she said we have horticulture? And I said, I was thinking, lady, she could take the word horticulture and break it down to every single syllable of it. But thanks for telling us it means plant. She said, Mama, I could just see the smoke rolling out of your ears. She was like, you were so upset. And I don't think the lady understood what it meant to place 14th in the Houston Spelling Bee. So the Houston Spelling Bee, the first 2 years she did it was the Houston Chronicle. And then on her last year, her 8th grade year, it went to the PBS, the Houston PBS Spelling Bee.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah. So this counselor had no idea what she was up against. And so when Kay Alana went to take the Tx test that they had, and she took 4 tests in one day.
Wow. Because that's not an easy test.
No. And, now we know, because we didn't know then. We had never done public school. And so we didn't know then that they usually take that test over a number of days.
Yeah.
And so
like a full week. It's like they take a whole week and you take a different little piece each day.
Right.
I hated it when my kids were in school. I'm not going to lie. I hated it.
So when I took her that morning, because she was going to take 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. So she was going to have 4 of these big tests, and we had no idea what that meant. So we got there. She went in to take the first 2 tests, and the lady said, come back and get her for lunch. And so I did, and we left, and we went and got lunch, and we came back. And so the lady was telling Kay Alana, she said, oh, you did really well on those first 2 tests. And so she tried to give her a calculator to take the math portion of the test, because she was going to have to take the math portion and the social studies / history part of the test. And the only thing we were worried about was the history part, because of being homeschooled. We had no idea of what curriculum they had done for the 8th grade year of history. And so the lady let her go in to take the other 2 tests. She was going to give her a calculator. And I said, oh, we don't use calculators. And she said, oh, she has to have a calculator for this test. And I said, no, ma'am, she's never even used a calculator. And they were like, oh, well, so she gave Kay a calculator. And so after she'd put Kay to do the test, we walked out in the hall, and she said, oh my gosh, she made 100 on both of those tests. So on the reading and the science, she made 100 on both tests. And so the lady told us, she said, no matter what happens, we're going to let her take the AP classes. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. So then I was so worried. And I told the lady this, I was really worried, because we had no idea what the curriculum was and anything. But for the summer before, we had gone on a Civil War tour, and we had visited every Civil War site, and we just immersed ourselves in the Civil War. because that was what we were doing with our homeschool co-op that year. So I go back to pick her up, and she walks out of that room, and I'm almost destroyed by what I see. She comes out and her little head is hanging down, and she just looks defeated. And I said, baby, it's okay. They said that they're going to let you take the AP no matter what you make on this test because you did so well. And she lifts up her head, and she has just the biggest grin on her face. And she said, Civil War. And so she ended up making 100
Oh my God. And she thought she didn't do good on it.
No. She knew. I think
Oh,
she
okay.
was playing it for me, but she knew she had aced that because she said, Mama, every question I was like, okay, I remember this at the Battle of the Clouds, and I remember this in Atlanta, and I remember this at Shiloh, and I remember this. And she was just grinning from ear to ear. And
She was
so
messing with you.
right. And so when they ended up grading the test, she made 100 on that one. And then on the math, she made a 98.
Oh, wow.
And so she made three 100s and a 98. And the lady's like, we've never seen anything like this. She's definitely going to be in the AP classes, except she had taken algebra in her 8th grade year. Well, they said that her algebra wasn't accredited, so she had to take retake algebra. So that put her out of one of the AP classes. And so she ended up making 110 that year in the algebra class. That's the highest you could make, and that's what she made. And even though she was behind the rest of the kids in an AP class, she still ended up within the first semester of school, she was number 2 in their class, and she held on to that until they graduated. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That
She's
is so
super
cool.
smart, super smart.
You did great homeschooling, Mama, just so you know. Homeschooling's not easy. I tried it and gave up.
Yeah. It really was one of the best things that we ever did with our girls. It gave us an opportunity to spend time with them and to really hone other skills, sewing, just all the little things, baking and cooking and all the things that you don't get to do when you're in school. And so
we used to, when we were in school, we had home ec. So you learned to cook and you learned to sew and you did all that. They don't do any of that anymore. So they leave school and they barely know how to balance a checkbook, let alone do life skills. It's sad.
So, yeah.
And so what all did she do in college? What did she go to college for?
So she was a double major in, so she did Spanish, business, and then she had a minor in hospitality.
Oh, wow.
And she was
I could see her as somebody doing hospitality. She seemed like somebody who just wanted to help anybody and everybody.
Right. And she was Lamar University ambassador. She loved Lamar University. It was such a great school to attend, and they really helped her to be able to travel. So when I say that she won $3.68 million out of high school, she won many more scholarships while she was in college. She was a McNair scholar, and she had broken her computer, and she had applied to be a McNair scholar, and she didn't know if she was going to get it, but she was hopeful. Well, one of the things about being a McNair scholar was you got a laptop computer with it. And
cool.
So she found out because her laptop was just destroyed, and she was so excited when she found out that she had been selected as a McNair scholar. And what that meant was that she would have a computer to do all of her schoolwork on, to work on her McNair project and everything. So it really, all the opportunities that Lamar afforded her as a student. She won scholarships to go to France. She won scholarships to go to Spain. Lamar made it possible for her to see the world.
That's really cool.
She took advantage of it.
I love to hear that. Love that. So in 2019, she's graduated college by now. and
She
gone to New York?
actually, she actually has about 6 credits left. She
Oh
found
no.
out that, yeah, she found out that her friend, she was due to graduate in December, but she found out her friend was going to New York. She'd always wanted to go to New York. It was on her bucket list of places to go and to work. And so she just came and she said, this is an opportunity that I cannot pass up. I can do study while I'm in New York, online studies and stuff. And so of course, you know, my mama heart was like, oh no, you worked so hard. Let's push through and just graduate and then go to New York. But she was set on going. And so in October of 2019, she left for New York City.
Oh wow.
And
And I can imagine small town Texas, guys. We are small town. I mean, Beaumont's 100,000 people, but it's still small town. Going to New York, that's like fish out of water. That I would be so lost. I would love to go visit to check it out, but I couldn't live there. I could not. So I can imagine that anxious young girl heading off for an adventure.
She
And then,
drove a
oh my
U-Haul.
God.
She
I'm
drove a
sorry.
U-Haul.
Oh,
Her and her friend. Yeah, she did most of the
wow.
driving. Yeah.
They did the whole cross country thing.
Oh yeah.
So October of 2019, that was a few months before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And New York was hit hard and shut down.
Yeah.
So tell us about her life there while she was still there, because she was there for a couple of years, right?
No. Well, yeah. In the end, it was probably close to that. But when she went there in the fall of 2019, they ended up getting a place to live in Brooklyn, and she had applied for a couple of different jobs. She'd call us and tell us about a couple of different opportunities. Well, since one of her things in college was hospitality, she ended up getting a job at a Hampton Inn on Times Square in New York City. So that meant she had to commute from Brooklyn, which means you ride a bus and then you ride the subway and then you walk and then you're at the Hampton Inn in Times Square. But she loved it. She had a few months to kind of get her feet on the ground and to learn things. And we would talk to her about her, was she learning about how to, tell the guests and the tourists things about New York. And she was really excited about that because she had learned enough to tell them what shows, what were going on and how to get to the shows or Central Park or just the different things you do in New York. She was learning, and the way she absorbs information, I'm sure she learned a lot in a short period of time. But she was really excited about being able to be that person, that could share good information with the tourists that would come and stay at their hotel. So then, wintertime comes and 2020 comes and we start hearing the first little rumors about the COVID. And when it finally did hit full force in New York City, she would send us pictures of the streets looking like one of these post-apocalyptic movies, Last Man on Earth type stuff. She would be commuting because she maintained full-time employment with the hotel. They kept her one of the few employees that they kept full-time throughout the entire pandemic. So that meant she still had to commute, whether it was midnight, 6 a.m, 3 a.m, whatever time she needed to be there. She would leave that apartment in Brooklyn, go catch a bus, ride an empty subway, get off on an empty subway platform, walk through an empty street to get to the Hampton Inn on Times Square. And then when she got off work, do that again in reverse. And she would send us these pictures.
That's got to be
scary. Horrifying. Very scary. And her mother sent her some wasp spray because wasp spray shoots 20 feet, which is further than pepper spray. And Kay said, well, Mom, it's illegal to spray somebody with wasp spray. And so Rosa told her, she said, well, tell the police that there were wasps all over that person and you were trying to save their life and you sprayed.
I agree. I didn't know it was illegal. Is it just illegal there to use wasp spray or is that everywhere?
We don't know, but she knew the law. So
I'm going to have to look that up because now I'm like, wait, is that illegal here?
Well, I'm pretty sure in Texas, you can probably get away with it because, you can probably, you can open carry here. So
you're right. We're a little bit more open with everything here.
Right. But
and everything you saw on the news during that time, she experienced firsthand. she walked past the refrigerated trucks that had the bodies in them. She related that she walked past one where the refrigeration had broken on that particular trailer, and you could smell that smell.
So that wasn't made up stories that we were hearing. That was
No,
This
it was
all
true. She would
firsthand.
she would call crying, and there were no like medical stuff. There was no. She called me and said, "Mama, I need a thermometer. I can't work unless I have a thermometer." And I thought, okay, no problem. I'm going to be able to find one
You
here
couldn't find
in
them.
Texas. It'll be no problem, you know. And it took me all day. And when I finally found one at the Berkshire Brothers in Koontz, I literally cried because I had been looking so hard. And she told me, she said, "Mama, there's no medicine." Now, Kay has asthma. She has her heart condition. She has all kinds of stuff going on. And my thought was, if something happens to her and she gets sick and she's not able to get to a doctor, she's going to need stuff. So I sent her like ibuprofen. I sent her, you know, all kinds of medicine that she could take for her heart, you know, that cough medicine and stuff that she could take with her heart condition. So I sent her like a box of medicine, and it was just a little tiny box. And she was telling me, "Mama, I need it tomorrow. I need it tomorrow." So I sent it next day. Cost like $108 to send this tiny little box with some medicine and a thermometer in it. But when she found out that it cost $100 to send it, she said, "Mama, you didn't have to do that." I said, "Baby, you needed it. And if you needed it, it was fine with me to spend that money to send it to you."
Right.
So,
Now, in the midst of all that, she continued to do her job. You know, she was committed to she was, one of her things is she's an independent adult woman, and she does what she has to do. And she did. She, throughout the entire period, she would go to work. She wrote a letter to corporate letting them know that they needed safety things in place. And so because of her letter, they were one of the first places where they had, the plexiglass and the masking and all that for all their employees and all those protections that were in place. And one of the people that works with her said that the letter looked like a lawyer had written it when she wrote to corporate, and they responded to that. So she had a concern for herself and the safety of the other employees. On TV one night, we were watching the news, and they were doing a story on the military medical personnel they had brought into New York. And they were staying at a hotel in New York City, and it just so happened to be that hotel. So she hosted, along with her other employees there, they hosted the military personnel that were there, the doctors and the nurses and all that. They were there about Easter time. It's okay. And the others planned a Easter egg hunt for those military folks so they could enjoy a little bit of Easter.
she said they were so excited when they showed up, and they had Easter eggs everywhere. They had ordered Easter eggs through Amazon, and they had Easter eggs everywhere hid in that hotel. And the service people were just blown away that they had done that for them. Really,
That's cute. That is cute.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so she wrote it out. She did her best, and then sometime in late 20s, she started talking about trying to get back, time to come back home. So in 21, actually,
the end of April, like the beginning of May. Now, while she was there, our other daughter, her sister Laren, called her to tell her that she was pregnant. And so once that happened, Kay was coming home because she wanted to be with Laren. She wanted to be with Ryder and everything. And so she started working her way to get home. Well, Ryder was born in December of 2020, and Kay finally made it home the end of April, the beginning of May. And she actually went and stayed with Laren and Laren's husband, Jake, and Ryder. And she just, that was some of the best times for her because they're, the new baby and just getting to be surrounded with love and everything. And I think she knew that Laren would be able to handle more than her dad and I, because she was really shaken. Like when she would come to our house, she would wear a mask. She would not take the mask off. She would wear her mask, and I would tell her, I would say, "Baby, you're safe here." And she would say, "No, I don't want to take a chance on getting y'all sick. I don't want to." And until the COVID shots were available and she took that first vaccination shot, she wore that mask. She wouldn't take it off.
So she was changed by being in New York.
Yeah. And it was so weird for us because she was always so brave because of having to overcome her heart. So there were things that she would do that I would be like, oh, don't do that. Her daddy would let her climb way up high in the magnolia trees. And I'm like, oh, so she was fearless when it came to doing stuff. But I think she didn't want her daddy and I to see her where she was so shaken, and she would shake all the time. I've never experienced anything like that, to see my brave, strong girl just shake. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, she was. It was definitely evidence that she was suffering from, PTSD.
Right.
It was later diagnosis that, and that was something that, probably ignorantly I never gave a lot of thought to. That you hear that tossed around, and people say they have it or whatever, their symptoms of it, and I probably didn't give it as much serious thought as I should have in the past. But seeing her that way, it's a real thing. That was hard to take. And then from that anxiety, that led eventually, to where we ended up in 23.
Right. So she had, one thing I'd heard y'all say is some friends encouraged her to see a therapist, and she was seeking help for the anxiety and the PTSD. And I'm sure there was depression and all of that involved in this. I don't want to diagnose, but we can just assume from what we see going on. And this doctor prescribed her a couple of medications.
Yes, he prescribed her Ritalin and Zoloft. Ritalin 20 milligrams and Zoloft 50 milligrams. And so our family has a terrible reaction to medications. My mother had it. All my siblings have it. I have it. Just a terrible reaction. And Kay Alana was also very susceptible. It was very hard to find medication that she could actually take that didn't cause her to have adverse reaction to it.
Well, and Zoloft does not have a good reputation. It really is not a medication they should be putting anybody on, in my opinion. The studies on it are not good.
Yeah.
Well, she had actually called her doctor and told him, because her best friend said, "What's going on?" She's like, "I'm not doing good with this." And she said, "Call the doctor." Well, Brittany said that Kay had called the doctor and he told Kay Alana, "Just keep taking it. It's going to get better. You're going to be, your body just has to get used to it." So she wasn't.
That is true to a point. But she had a heart condition.
Right. And
this isn't a normal, average, healthy person. She has a heart condition.
Right. And we know that is always the first thing that Kay Alana tells any doctor, because it's so important to her that they know that that's going on for her. And so instead of saying, okay, you're not doing good on 50 milligrams of this stuff, we're going to back it off. On the 20th of February, her prescription, I guess she'd done all the ones. Her first prescription she got on January 17th, 2023. So the next prescription, because we have the bottles, the next prescription came in on February of 2020. And it was 100 milligrams of Zoloft. She was still on 20 milligrams of Ritalin.
You mean 2023?
Huh?
You mean 2023?
2023.
Okay.
So they went from 50 milligrams in January to 100 milligrams the 20th of February.
So less than a month, he's already prescribing her a higher dosage, even though she's like, "I'm not okay."
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, and we found out since then that it takes 14 days for this to build up in your system. So there were 8 days left in February. If she started taking it then, that was 8 days. She went missing on the 10th. So you're talking about 18 days. She hadn't slept for 4 or 5 days before this. She had told Brittany she had actually gone to help Brittany with something. Brittany Mendoza is Kay Alana's best friend, and they do everything together. They've had they're just like sisters almost. And so she was at Brittany's house, and when she got there, Brittany said, Kay, what is wrong? You look terrible. And she said, I haven't slept in 3 days. This medicine is just keeping me awake. I haven't slept in 3 days. And so Brittany's like, you've got to call this doctor and let him know. You've got to do that. And so Kay's like, okay. Well, the next morning, which would have been the 9th of March. So that was the 8th of March. The 9th of March, Brittany gets up to go to work, and she goes to knock on Kay's bedroom door because, of course, Kay has a room at her house. And she goes to knock on the door, and Kay doesn't answer. And Brittany says, oh, I'm thankful she's sleeping. And that's what she thought. Well, come to find out, Kay was actually outside. Brittany's family her house has a really big yard and a big area. And apparently she was outside working out. So Brittany thought that Kay was sleeping. And so Brittany went to work and had no idea that Kay Alana wasn't sleeping, that Kay Alana was still awake. So you're talking about 4 to 5 days with no sleep at all at this point on the 9th of March.
And that I want to show this picture real quick. This picture here, not that one. Is it showing? Yes, this picture here, guys. This is Kay Alana the day that she was last seen. This is Brittany's house, right?
Yes, that's on Brittany's Ring doorbell camera. And Kay Alana is actually trying to get back into Brittany's house. And Kay knows all the codes to get to Brittany's house and everything. And she was unable to get in. And the saddest part about this is that Brittany's garage door was open. All Kay had to do was walk through the garage and get back into the house. But she didn't do that because she wasn't thinking clearly. And Kay is able to think on her feet, but she had not had any sleep or anything. But this is the dress that she was wearing. This is what she had on that day. And when she went missing, the jacket was found in her car. And of course, her purse and her overnight bag and all of that.
I'm going to put that banner back up in a minute, but I want us to be able to see the pictures we're showing because this dress is important, guys. You see how long this is down here? This is a long dress. So that's very important as this story goes on.
Right.
And just very odd that she didn't, she knows the code, so she could have pushed the code to get in the front door.
Right.
And the garage is open. She could have just gone in there, and she can't figure out how to get in the house.
Yeah.
And she talks to the neighbors, doesn't she?
Yes. So she went to one of the neighbors' house thinking that was Brittany's house after she left Brittany's. And so that neighbor reached out to Brittany to let her know once she knew that Kay Alana was missing. She said, she was at my house looking for you. And of course, at this point, we're all, we're finding out what happened that morning. I get a call from Brittany at 10 in the morning, a little before 10 in the morning on the 10th. And Brittany does not panic. Brittany is calm, cool, collected, and she is panicking. And she tells me that she can't get a hold of Kay, that Kay had texted her on the 9th saying no help. And Brittany had kept trying to get a hold of her. And finally, when she got a hold of her, Brittany said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I'm just driving around." And Brittany said, "Take my number." And so she doesn't know if Kay, did that or not. And so Brittany, the phone goes dead. Brittany calls Kay Alana's boyfriend, James, and James gets in his car and starts driving around Beaumont looking for her. And he's out till 2 in the morning and he can't find her. He's going to all the places where she plays music. He's going to all the places they hang out. He's drove by several friends' houses. He's not seeing her, but he thinks maybe she just stayed at her parents or went to Laren's house. And so he goes home because he has to be at work at 6 the next morning. So he goes.
just so y'all know, this was like, she's into vintage clothing, and this was if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't this dress something she made with, it was a robe, a vintage robe.
Yes, it's a vintage. It's one of those fancy vintage robes like you would see at Studio 54. And I actually was with her when she found it. We were at an estate sale, and I remember her running. When she saw it, she ran to get it.
This is her vintage clothing stuff. She has her own little shop, guys. She loves vintage stuff and coming up with neat looks.
Right.
I love the brevity in that, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. She's always done that. When they were little, we spent a lot of time going to antique stores, and she just has such a quirky,
I love it. I love the
attitude.
style.
And we would call her our little hippy dippy girl. So yeah. But part of the story is her house, she rented a house in January. So we actually all went and helped her move in on January the 1st. So the first night she slept there, and it was a few weeks before she could actually stay there, because they had an ice storm. We'd had the freeze, and here, not really ice storm, but
And they
freeze.
laugh at us, guys, because they don't understand it. One of them's from Michigan. They're all from they get winter. We don't have winter, and so they don't understand. When I tell y'all we have a winter and it shuts everything down, we shut down like some sleep, and we're like, shut down.
So it froze the pipes, and the pipes underneath the house burst. And so she couldn't move in for a couple of weeks while they were fixing the plumbing. So the first night that she stayed there, she called me the next morning and she said, "Mama, I think there's bed bugs." And I said, no, because she did not have, she didn't have any bed bugs. And so she actually captured some of the bed bugs and put them in a baggie and brought them to my house. But by then she'd already researched it. She wouldn't even come in our house because she was so scared that she would bring a bed bug into our house.
Oh no, poor thing.
So I said, you need to get in touch with your landlord and everything. Well, of course, the landlord said, this is not my problem. This is, and in the state of Texas, this is not the landlord's problem. This is the tenant's problem. She hasn't even stayed but one night there, and all of a sudden she's got bed bugs. But here's the sad part is she had brought all of her vintage clothing merchandise to that store because she planned on the way that little house was set up. It had a perfect area to have her little boutique set up. She'd set up her sewing machine. She'd set up all her stuff and everything. And now she's got bed bugs. Now it becomes her responsibility to take care of the bed bugs. And I'm going to tell you, when I say that she researched everything that there had to do with bed bugs, she had a notebook full of ways to kill bed bugs.
It's not easy.
Yeah. She spent 6 weeks fighting the bed bugs in that house. And she couldn't even stay there. So she was having to change clothes. I actually went and bought her a few little outfits to have here, and she would stand on my front porch and I would hold the sheet up in front of her and she would strip down her clothes and then go in and take a shower. She was so terrified of bringing a bed bug into our house. And so once she had eradicated the bed bugs from the house, they gave her back her deposit. They gave her back her rent and everything, but she had to take all of those clothes to the laundromat and rewash them because they had the smell of all the bug spray and stuff in them. So her car was loaded down with bags, white plastic bags of her vintage clothing that she took to laundromat. She had 3 big things of laundry detergent in her car, where she had gone to the laundromat and washed all these clothes. Well, she had come to see us or me a couple of days before all of this happened, the week before she'd come to the house. And I said, "Baby, you need to get all these clothes out." And she's like, "Well, we're going to sign on the house that her boyfriend was buying a house." And so she's like, "Why would I unpack these clothes when I'll just have to pack them back in my car and then move them to the new house?" And
I can't blame her.
I'm
on
like,
that.
okay, but I was thinking then when I saw that, I'm like, if anybody sees this, they're going to think you're homeless, because you have all these bags of clothes in your car. But they would know instantly when she opened the door, because when you open the door, all you could smell was laundry detergent. um, you know, but who would dream that that would be a problem? Who would dream that because she had bags of clothes in her car that was going to
And
lead
it
to
definitely prejudiced the police in this case.
It did. It did.
Mhm.
So once Brittany gave us the phone call that Kay Alana, that she couldn't find Kay Alana, well, I took off work. I called Robbie at his work, and he said, well, maybe she went to Austin. They have a really good friend that lives in Austin. And last year they did South by Southwest, or that in 2022, they did South by Southwest. I can't believe we're already
She has
another
been
year
missing a year, guys. It was a year last Saturday.
Yes.
Saturday, wasn't it, or Sunday?
Well,
The
the year was the 9th, but
The
the
9th.
10th is like she went missing on March 10th of 2023.
And so it's been 1 year.
Mhm.
1 year, guys.
Yes. So her dad said, hey, have him call the friend and see if maybe she decided to go to Austin. And so Brittany called, and he said, oh yeah, she called me last night. She said her phone was at 3% and that she was in Hockley, Texas, and I tried to give her my address. And so went to Robbie's work, since I was already in Beaumont looking around, went to Robbie's work to get him, and we took off for Hockley, Texas. Well, while we were doing that, Brittany had actually called the Hardin County. We live in Hardin County. Called the Hardin County Sheriffs to file a missing persons, and they told her that she would have to file it at her house. So she was at her house filing a missing person. We were on our way to Hockley, Texas, and I got on the phone and called the Austin Police Department to get them to do a well check to the friend's house, thinking that maybe Kay Alana had just fallen asleep in the parking lot, because she didn't know he'd moved from one apartment to another apartment. So she didn't know the apartment number. So maybe she was just sleeping in the parking lot.
And her phone's dead, so you can't get her at this point.
Right. Her phone was dead. So I called the friend in Austin, and he said I talked to the Harris County Sheriff's Department, and they said they're looking for her. None of that made sense to us. Why would the Harris County Sheriff's Department be looking for Kay Alana?
Right.
You know, there's no reason they would be looking for Kay Alana. So then that also kind of scared me, because, you know, at that point I'm like, okay, this police officer in Austin really needs to get there and check and see what's going on. So I'm messaging back and forth with the police officer in Austin. Brittany's filling out the missing person in Hardin County, and we got to Hockley, Texas at about 1:00, something like that. And my phone rings. We just pulled into a McDonald's. My phone rings, and it's the Austin police officer. And she said, what he said is true. Harris County is looking for Kay Alana. They had a dog and a helicopter. And she said, I am so sorry. And so I hung up with her, and I called Harris County. And it took forever. And finally, a police officer called me back. And I guess he was one of the ones that was there. His first question out of his mouth was, is your daughter homeless? And I said, no, sir, she is not. I said, the clothes that were in her car, she has a vintage clothing business. And he said, well, your daughter's a drug addict, right? And I was like, no, sir, she is not. She is not a drug addict. So within the first few minutes of talking to us, they have accused her of being a homeless drug addict. And we're just mortified. You know, none of this is true. And so
well, at this point, wouldn't they have already run her license plate and all of that to see who the car belongs to and see that she's not homeless?
So that's kind of a thing. She had fallen asleep. They have her on Ring doorbell at several houses. So at one house, she'd followed he was like a teenage boy home, and she at this point she had to be out of her mind, just so tired.
We're talking 4 or 5 days no sleep at this point.
Right. And she followed him into his driveway, and she asked him, she said, can I sleep in your driveway? And he said, well, I have to ask my parents. And when they came out, and we have the video of this, when they came out, she was already pulling away. And then she ended up at another lady's house, and those videos are so terrifying to me because she's like singing at the top of her lungs and she's saying, I love you. But that's when we found out that we were able to figure out that she thought she had made it to Austin and that she was actually at the friend's house. And so that lady had called the Harris County Sheriff's Department and said, there's a lady at my door. And this was at 3:30 in the morning on the 10th. There's a lady at my door. She is not drunk. She is not on drugs. She is having some kind of mental breakdown. You guys need to get here to help her. And she kept calling and they never came. And then when Kay Alana drove away, then Kelsey said, she's left my house. And they said, okay, well, just send us the videos. So Harris County knew that there was a lady that was out there having some kind of mental breakdown. They didn't come. They didn't. And it was 20 minutes from the time that Kelsey called the first time till the time that Kay Alana drove out of Kelsey's driveway. So they had a description of Kay Alana's car. They knew that she was having a mental breakdown of some kind. And so then from there, she ends up in another neighborhood. And you can't Google your way out of these neighborhoods. You're just in them. There's no way. If you don't have your phone to Google your way out of, there were several neighborhoods over there that I got lost in that I had to Google my way out of. So I know this. So she ended up in this neighborhood at a house, and it was gated, but it had like an area you could kind of pull up to the gate and park. And so she had parked at that house and gone to sleep. And that house, come to find out, was actually an Airbnb. And the people that had rented it had flown in from out of state. And on the plane, one of their family members actually had a stroke. And so instead of going straight to the Airbnb, they went to the hospital. So they ended up coming home from the hospital about 4:30 in the morning. And Kay Alana was sleeping in the driveway of the Airbnb. And so they knocked on her window, woke her up, and she moved her car, but she moved it one driveway over. So in that driveway, the lady told us, because when we were talking to the police, they told us where the incident had happened at. And we asked, would they meet us there? And he's like, I'm getting off work. So no, he just gave us the address and sent us there. But he did tell us that they had impounded Kay Alana's car.
See,
because we asked about that.
Y'all need to listen to that part. They impounded I've got my virtual background on, so my hands disappeared. Impounded, the car, right?
Right. They told us that they had impounded Kay Alana's car. So we drive to this address, no police to meet us, nothing. And so we're just gathering information from the people that we talked to. So the people in the Airbnb had told us their story. So the lady at this house, when we get there, this
is Kay Alana's car, guys. It's so impounded. So impounded. I'm just saying.
So heartbreaking. So when we get there, the husband of that house is talking to us. And through that talking, he asked Robbie if he wants to see the car. And Robbie's like, they told us it's impounded. And he said, no, it's still out there in the woods. And so Robbie said, yeah, I would like to see the car. And so then I'm talking to the lady of the house, and she's telling me that my daughter had come there, that the police had told her that my daughter had come there to that Airbnb because the people that were staying at the Airbnb, mind you, they knew nothing about these people at the Airbnb, that those people were there selling drugs, and that my daughter was there to get drugs, and my daughter was homeless. And I'm telling this lady, no, none of that is true. But she begins to tell me what happened. She said she woke up at 5:25 and looked out her window and noticed that there was a strange car in her driveway. And she goes out to check, and she finds Kay Alana asleep, and she can't wake Kay Alana up. Well, Kay hasn't slept for days at this point.
She's crashed. She has finally just crashed and burned.
And Kay has a heart condition. And when that heart condition kicks in, you can't wake her up. She'll sleep for days, when she has an episode. And so she'll sleep for days. So the lady said that they called the police and they called the homeowners association. Well, the homeowners association, from everything that we have gathered from all the people in the neighborhood, because they were very nice to talk to us and tell us what happened. So that lady said they wake her up, and the lady said, I thought she was going to hit my car because they had parked behind her. So they were blocking her in this driveway. So the lady said she pulled up and then she backed up and she said, I thought she was going to hit my car. I thought she was going to hit our well house, our pump house. And she said, and then Kay Alana doesn't hit either, but then she drives across their yard down to the road like she's heading out of the neighborhood. And
so she's got strange people banging on her window, trying to wake her up. She wakes up. She don't know where she's at. She don't know who any of these people are. And she's freaked out.
Yeah, she's freaked out. And at this point, she hasn't slept in days and everything. So then she gets down around the corner from where she was at. And the homeowners association president has the road blocked so that she can't get out. So they've trapped her in this neighborhood. They've completely trapped her. So then she, and that is how we know that she was having a cardiac event, because the homeowners association president began to snap pictures of her. And in those pictures, her lips are completely blue. You can tell that there is something seriously going on with this person. And they are treating her like an animal. They've trapped her. And so all the houses in that neighborhood are gated. And so she drives back. The only house that doesn't have a gate is the house that she was at where they woke her up at. So she's just sitting there in the driveway, and then the police get there. And the lady tells me that the police came up the side of Kay's car, and when they tried to get into Kay's car, she said she was frantically locking her car door. Okay, you don't have a criminal frantically locking their car door, because a criminal knows that that's not going to help. But somebody that is scared out of their mind, that doesn't know what's going on, they're going to try to protect themselves the best way they can. And so the lady said she then moved her car up next to the fence. And the lady said, we thought her car must have been bogged down because she was just sitting there at the fence. Well, at that point, the police officer comes up, and the lady tells us that that he busted Kay's window out. She doesn't tell us what she busted. So I just thought they used one of those tools, that would have
because they have a special window tool that, or even their nightstick they'll use to break a window. They have
right. So
things.
You're thinking at that point, you're thinking the window probably would have just slid right down, just shattered straight down. But because of the police report, they actually put in the police report that he busted her window out with a 2x4. Can you imagine the force that someone would have to use to bust somebody's window out with a 2x4? And he was swinging it at her on her driver's side. We don't even know if he hit her with that 2x4. And at that point, she drove her car through the fence, down an alleyway, around, down into the neighbor's yard. They had a little outbuilding. And then that neighbor said, I don't know how she didn't hit the house, the little outhouse, because there was just not a lot of room. So she went around that little house and then out through his backyard. So the police are standing there talking to this neighbor, and he's like, he told us that the car was never going more than 3 or 4 miles an hour, and if the police had walked at a jaunt, they would have passed the car up. But they didn't follow the car. They had to make the police follow Kay Alana's car. And at this point, we find out they had no idea who Kay Alana was. They hadn't run her plates. They hadn't checked anything. And they're watching this woman drive her car across the pasture. And the thing that y'all are looking at now, the map, you can see where she went and where she went across the pasture. So she drove through another fence, and you can see the red mark where she got out. She bogged her car down in the woods and got out and ran for her life.
This up here, let me make
the red is where she got
this
out.
Up here is where they lost the track of her here. This creek right here, guys, all this area up here is Montgomery County.
Right.
This here is Harris County. So we've got this small area where her car has now gone into that goes into a totally different county. But I mean, this is a long ways. I mean,
it's a half mile. It looks longer than what I actually have a walk-in app. And so I tracked it, and it's exactly 0.46 from the first neighbor's house down to where the car was.
Okay.
So it's not even a half a mile down there. And if you look at the map,
She's
you can
driving pretty frantic. You see her, she takes a turn here and then goes back around.
yeah, there was like fences, I think, and she
Okay.
was trying to avoid
And
the
they're
fences.
actually, it was more in the open fields. Her tracks actually zigzagged more than that. She was
Okay.
there are two barbed wire fences, and she was trying to get her, find a way through those fences.
So
But
this
as
map,
you can see, this cop here, guys, Mr. Brave, Mr. Harris County jerk face here, being nice, is pointing a gun at this car.
right, and it's empty. She's not in
He's
the car.
gone.
She's already gone from the car. So, but this map that you see was actually made by one of the men that live in the neighborhood. And the people in this neighborhood have been so kind to us. They actually we had to go back to this neighborhood afterwards because in talking to the people and everything, they told us where they thought Kay Alana had come out on Decker Prairie Rose Hill Road. And we actually drove over to the house, and the lady at that house led us onto her property. We walked that property. I'm going to tell you, the bramble that was out there, I was literally wearing shorts and dragging myself through this bramble, searching for Kay Alana, screaming her name. Her daddy was doing that. But I want Robbie to
And
talk.
just for y'all to understand, we call our area this direction of Texas Big Thicket. This brush isn't just a few trees. This is thick weeds and briar and trees, and you don't just, if there's not a path cut through, you don't just go through that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let her daddy talk about what she.
Yeah, so they walk you down to the car. So the impounded car is technically not impounded because they take you to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Harris County in the end never had possession of the car. It was never impounded. He used that phrase, but in the end, on that Sunday, which would have been the 12th, I believe, the private property owner actually had that car towed out of there without our knowledge, and it took us quite a while to find out where the car actually ended up. And in the end, we lost the car because the laydown yard where it ended up, the tow company wouldn't let us have access to the car because it wasn't our car and our name wasn't on the title and blah, blah, blah. And so they ended up auctioning the car off. It was better to auction it off to some stranger than to let the family have the car.
Yeah, we were
And
willing.
here's the other thing to that. She's got warrants now because she's some horrible criminal, according to Harris County. Why are they not keeping the car for evidence?
Well, that's a good question. We've asked that question too, and you get a shrug of the shoulders pretty much any question you ask.
Harris County needs to do better. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Anyway, when we walked down to the car, that's the way you see the car in the picture is pretty much the way we found the car. The deputies didn't take anything out of the car. They did look at her driver's license, which was in her purse, and that's how they finally knew who they were dealing with. And
we're not even sure about that because the Homeowners Association president said that they looked at his picture to identify her. Her purse didn't even look like it had been disturbed at all. Well, so I'm not sure if they even looked at her driver's license.
Just went by the license plate. That's true. So at any rate, all that was in the car. And then me and the other gentleman, he kind of showed me the direction she went, and that's.
Did you find any of her clothing or anything that?
She when she left that car, she dropped her phone, which one of the deputies picked up, and they had it until recently. We got that back, but the only thing they took that day was that phone. They left everything else in the car as it sits. And as she said, it didn't look like they'd even looked through the car to see, what was in there. But so when we were able to gather we got her purse and her overnight bag and a few other things, and we're able to get those back here to the house before they towed the car. But at any rate, she took nothing. She was in that pink dress we saw earlier, dropped her phone on the way out. I followed her track down to the creek and found her shoes. Her shoes were full of the broken glass. She clearly had, in her state of mind, all I can figure is she made it that far before she realized something was hurting her feet. And so she just took the shoes off. And so I found the shoes full of glass.
They have blood in them.
We have those. We brought those back with us as well. Anyway, right there at that same place on that creek is a big log that had fallen across the creek. And so she would have been able to cross on the log. There was on the other side on the sandbar what appeared to be footprints, which we, believe to be hers, and then up that side of the creek. And as you said, it is the big thicket, and the only way you're going to get through it is if there had been lanes cut. And as it so happens, along the creek, the property owner there had a lane cut. And so there was some, you would have been kind of forced to follow certain paths once you got across the creek, because there was a lane cut going one way, and then in the other direction would have taken you towards Decker Prairie Rose Hill Road. And that's the direction everybody believes that she went, mostly based on the fact that it was early in the morning. There was a lot of dew on the grass, and there seemed to be that the grass was bent and had held its shape, bent over as if somebody had gone through the grass in that direction. So when you come up out of the creek on that side, Montgomery County side, we're, as sure as you can be that that's the direction she went, and that she had to have made it to Decker Prairie Road. From there, who knows?
So what I find interesting is because you say they brought out dogs and a helicopter. Now, when they have anything happen in Harris County with a helicopter, the news is all over it.
Yeah, and we were there within hours of this happening, and we were out in those woods. They did not spend any time at all looking for Kay Alana.
I mean,
really, in the scheme of
they
things,
chase down criminals. I'm sorry, we see it happen all the time.
Well, and
they didn't chase this 110-pound girl down. Like, come on.
And I'm going to tell you, she would trip walking across the kitchen floor. So she's not like, but they would have you believe that Kay Alana is Jason Bourne, that she is just this unbelievable,
And you're saying the videos that you've seen in pictures, her lips are blue. So she's not getting good oxygen. Her heart's probably giving her serious issues. She is delirious from lack of sleep. There is no way that she could have gotten away from them if they were doing their jobs.
Right. But they waited 45 minutes for a dog and a helicopter to get there. They didn't even go into the woods to look for her.
They didn't pursue her.
They didn't pursue her at all. They just let her go. And how far can you make it? And she would have had her adrenaline pumping. She would have been scared out of her mind.
No shoes, so her feet are getting tore up.
And her shoes had blood in them. So we know that her feet were cut by the glass. So, here we are 372 days later with no answers,
guys. I'm
and
so
no
sorry.
help from the police. Her last text message is true. No help. And the police have continually cut off our ability to have any help because they put those felony warrants in place for a girl. And the Texas Ranger has told us, he said, there's no reason that they did this. There's no reason. There is nothing in her background. There is nothing that would have made them have treated her the way that they treated her, except they didn't bother to find out who she was before they busted her window out with a 2x4. They had no idea who she was until they pinged her car at like 7:08 or something like that. After her car was already bogged down in the woods before they even knew who she was. And we were in that neighborhood that night while we were waiting to fill the missing persons thing out, and the people in the neighborhood were coming out. And I went to introduce myself to one of the men, and I said, "Hi, I'm Rosa Calhoun and my daughter." And he said, "I Googled your lovely daughter. I think there's been a horrible mistake." So as soon as they knew Kay Alana's name, they had Googled her and they knew there had been a horrible mistake. But did the police bother to do any of that? They did not. They could not wait to slap those warrants on her. And anytime we have come into contact with any of the Harris County Sheriff's deputies, that first, when she first went missing that first day, my niece put together a flyer, and the only phone number that we put on that flyer was the Harris County Sheriff's Department. That's the only phone number that we put on there. And we were at a hospital because we were going to every single hospital. And when we got there, there was a Harris County Sheriff's deputy sitting in the parking lot. He was outside of his car. And so I walked over to hand him one of the flyers. And when I did, he put his hands behind his back and I said, "Our daughter is missing." And He looked at me and he said, "Your daughter is not missing. She is a fugitive." And I said, "This is not true." I said, "She knows nobody here. She knows nobody. She is in a strange place. She doesn't have her phone. You guys have her phone." And he refused to take the flyer. Well, there was another man standing there and he said, "Ma'am, I'll take the flyer." And so at that point, we knew that Harris County was going to do nothing for our daughter. Their stance on it was, if we see her, we will arrest her. And every time I talked to a Harris County deputy, I would say, "Please don't tase her because she has a heart condition and that will kill her." And they would say, "We will do whatever we have to do to apprehend her." And I would say, "Would you please take her to the hospital?" And they would say, "We'll take her to the jail and she'll be evaluated at the jail." You've got a woman that you know is having a serious health crisis, and your response is, "We're going to take her to jail." You know, it was ridiculous the way that they treated us, and they continue to treat us like that.
So Texas Equasearch came on pretty quickly, huh?
Our pastor, he used to pastor at a church over in the Livingston area. I don't know exactly which one, but anyway, he was a pastor over there, and one of his members has been with Equasearch for quite some time. And so almost immediately he called him and made contact for us as soon as we knew we were dealing with, a missing person. Texas Equasearch is, in my mind, the most effective
They're the best of the best
volunteer organization in the world. I mean, they know what they're doing, and
they call Texas Equasearch to go all over because
Exactly.
they're just the best of the best.
They really are.
They do.
So we had them at our disposal within hours of Kay going missing, and we were feeling pretty good about that. We thought this is going to be great, and hopefully we'll find her pretty quick. Well, what we didn't know was that Harris County was actively putting those warrants into place, and so we found out pretty quick that Texas Equasearch, as with most volunteer organizations, they cannot search for somebody that's a fugitive, has warrants, because of the liability issues of how a volunteer is searching for somebody who might be dangerous. So Harris County, won't let them participate in that. So we had a window, and so we met with we talked to Equasearch that Friday evening for the first time, and by 6:30 Saturday morning, we met him out there on the road, and he put together a small team, as many people as he could gather on short notice. And he told us, "We'll search for as long as we can, but when the warrants go in place, we'll have to pull out." So they went into the woods that morning and searched that immediate area as best they could. They spent about 6 hours working really hard and didn't find anything. Found no evidence that she was in those woods.
Not a scrap of her dress, not anything.
Nothing.
And she's still in that long pink dress that I showed you a while ago,
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
She doesn't have the jacket on anymore, but she's in the dress, no shoes.
Yeah.
So there's going to be blood because there was blood in the shoes, I'm assuming, from the glass.
Well, we think that the dog that they showed up with was probably a drug dog. We don't think it was actually a dog that was supposed to be searching for people, because
More than likely for Harris County, it was a drug dog. And
Yeah.
they,
because they needed to prove that she had drugs. But in her purse, she had tea bags, she had her inhaler, she had her medication. She had, I had to look it up because she had this little facial kit thing. I didn't know it was a facial kit. It was like these little smooth stones and everything. So I had to actually look up the name of it. I'm like, what is this? She had nothing in her purse. She had some gum, nothing in her purse that says that this person is a drug addict.
So they could have, looking through that car, they'd been able to say, okay, I don't find any drug paraphernalia. So what are we dealing with here? They've already heard that people are concerned that it's a woman having a mental crisis. And we're not going to worry about the felon.
They fumbled so badly out of the gate that from there on out, it was just trying to cover up their own embarrassment and their own mistakes. Yeah. That's all we can
Shame on them.
Because they were they're holding tightly to that scenario.
Well, I hope they sleep well at night. Yeah. I mean, I'm wishing that on them because karma kind of comes back. But, I hope that the last thing they see every night is that lovely, beautiful young woman's face.
Well, I kind of wonder if they hear her heartbeat. She has because of her heart condition, her heart makes like this little whistle sound. And I wonder if when they lay their head down at night, if they hear this little heartbeat with a whistle, and they wonder, what is that sound? You know, I hope that they hear her heartbeat.
Well, this is definitely on them because they messed up. They messed up.
I don't know if we said this or not, but the other thing they didn't do that morning was notify Montgomery County. It was 3 hours from the time she went into those woods until, and I think Montgomery County actually found out through a Facebook post or something. I don't know that anybody ever did actually call them.
Yeah, he did say, because I actually sat in the car with the officer that took the call, and he said we weren't doing anything that day. He's like, we could have been out there. And here's my thought on that. Kay Alana has always been surrounded by law enforcement people. She has 2 uncles that are law enforcement. She actually house sits for a retired state trooper. So she has lots of friends that are police officers. And we believe had they had an officer out there on that road that morning, that she would have run to them and said, someone busted out my window. Somebody's chasing me. Somebody is trying to hurt me. Please help me. We believe that, but they didn't. And we can tell you, we have spent hundreds of hours out there on Decker Prairie, Rose Hill Road, passing out flowers. We've been to every single neighborhood out there. We sit at the corner of Decker Prairie, Rose Hill, and Co Loop handing out flyers. We've handed out probably 25,000 flyers in that area, and nobody saw her. It would have been rush hour in the morning, the early morning hours. It would have been rush hour time. Nobody has seen her on that road. We have a big old sign out there asking people, if you saw her, please call us. You know, nobody has called to say that they saw her that morning. How do you have a girl in a long hot pink dress running for her life and nobody sees her during rush hour traffic?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand how she's just poofed out of thin air. I mean, the dogs haven't found her. Equasearch didn't find anything.
Those woods have been searched. Equasearch has been back. Equasearch, as I said, they had to be sidelined for a while. They eventually basically said, tough, we're coming back anyway, because they recognized it's wrong. It was just wrong that they weren't being allowed to help us. And so they kind of, I don't know if it's the first time, but it's a rarity for them to be involved this much, with trying to help somebody that actually has warrants. And so we appreciate them so much. Actually, we had a prayer vigil at our church this past Sunday night on the 10th, the 1-year anniversary, and there was quite a few of the Equasearch people showed up, and they were such a blessing. And so
I was going to come, and I ended up having a fever, and I thought, no, I'm not going to go be around anybody. I was not feeling good. I was like, dang it, because I wanted to come. Because you were afraid nobody was coming. You were afraid nobody would show up. So
I really was, and we were blown away because Robbie works with Kairos, and the Kairos people showed up, and then Kay Alana's friends showed up, and there really was a crowd there, and it was really.
Well, that's the one thing about our area I love to hold dear to, and it's why we've moved back every time we've left. In crisis, the people here stand together. Whether it be something like this or a hurricane or whatever, we band together. And so I'm really glad that y'all had a good turnout and support.
We did.
And the news is finally starting to take notice, and thank God.
That has been the hardest thing, because we know that we have to get national coverage, because if not, we're struggling to get coverage even right here in our own hometown. And finally they've started to talk to us, and it's been a year, but when you have a missing person in your family, a person that you love, when there's another family that has a missing loved one, you want to do everything you can to help them. So we are trying to share about those people and to try to help with that. And because of that, now some people have come and talked to us. And when little Audrey went missing and stuff, and we were so
and that's close to us too. That's only right up the road. What, an hour maybe?
Yeah, we were so praying for better from that. And there's been several other people that have gone missing in our area that we have have tried to share. And we have people, because we've been doing this now for a year, we've had people that are just at day 1 and day 2, and they're contacting us and saying, what did y'all do? What did y'all do? And so we're able to come alongside them and tell them, you know, you need to do this, you need to get a Facebook page dedicated to your missing person. Call the police, just call them over and over and over again, because what happens, there's so many people missing. They have stacks of missing people, and they just throw another name on top of your kid, you know, and they just keep throwing another name, another person on top. And so your person ends up moving down the stack, and you have to do something to continually move your child or your mama or your daddy or whoever is missing up to the top of the stack, so that they're ever before them. So Kay Alana's missing person detective, he says that he's never seen a family that has done what we have done. He's never seen a family that just continually fights. And I don't believe, you know, maybe in his, but we know families that are continuing to fight. Joanne Lowitzer, her daughter Allie, has been missing now for almost 14 years. Gosh. And because of her, there's legislation. There's now a National Day of the Missing. Because of her, there's a Texas Day of the Missing. She has been such a fighter for other families that have people missing. There's the John and Joseph law that another family worked on. So now when somebody is missing, they have that option of, if there was a thing in Texas that if they found you dead out just in a park or something, they would have to DNA test you. But if they got you to the hospital and you died at the hospital and they didn't know who you were, they could just bury you, and they didn't do any DNA testing. So then there was this family that was fighting to find out if it was their loved one that had died in the hospital, and they were fighting them because of HIPAA. You know, we can't tell you if that's your loved one. And so they ended up getting legislation passed. So now that if somebody is brought to the hospital and they don't know who they are, they have to do DNA. They have to collect their DNA, and they have to put it in NamUs. So that those families, how many missing people are buried in cemeteries that that their family doesn't even know? And I'm going to tell you, there's something about closure. You know, you don't want your person to be gone. You don't want that. But there's something about closure that helps. And so this little family, because of their fight, they have closure for their daddy. They know where he is.
But then a lot of other people will now have access to that same closure, because up until then, any John Doe or Jane Doe that died in a hospital did not have to go through the process of being identified. They just sent them off to Boot Hill, and nobody ever knew anything different. But now that should be changed because of this law.
And it's nationwide. I mean, you see what's happening in Mississippi, that they have there's a little town in Mississippi where they just buried people. They didn't reach out. They saw all these people were listed as missing people, and truly the county knew where they were and just didn't bother to tell their families. And so now that's so helping. Sad. So there are so many things that we didn't know. We didn't know. There's no way to know these things until you're there and you realize there's that gap. This is a gap that needs to be closed. This is somewhere that someone needs help with. You know, had we not been so diligent, I don't think Harris County was not prepared when they busted out the window of what they thought was a homeless drug addict. They were not prepared for her family to show up within hours and begin to fight for her and advocate for her and look for her. They were unprepared for that.
Yeah.
But there are other families that are fighting just as hard. And everybody deserves to know where their kid is. Everybody deserves to know where their mama or where their daddy is. You know, there's organizations that are doing good work, There's an organization that searches waterways and has just recovered so many people that their cars just drove off the road into water, and they've been missing for years, you know.
Yeah, there's several of the dive companies. I have a few of them that I follow. I just can't think of their names right now.
So,
Um,
yes.
but I tell you what, any of the families that you've been talking to that want to get their stories out, send them to me
Will.
and we'll share them. Lokamai that was here earlier, she does a lot of missing people cases and she'll share everything I'm putting out there because she is all about finding.
Is she from Hawaii? Because I think she
Yes.
did something. Yeah, she did something for Kay Alana early on. And that's our other thing is we are fighting so many untruths that have been put out because like when Kay first went missing, the Beaumont Enterprise did a story that was so riddled with misinformation. And we were fighting to try to get it out there, to change. But it finally, this was in the early days and we were just struggling. And now when you Google her name, that's one of the first things that comes up. He had her driving around at nighttime. He had everything. I mean, every single thing that he wrote in that story was wrong, but that is the story that people find. And that is the story that people do. And I've done at least 30 podcasts, and they're out there and we're trying to fight to tell the truth. And that is the hardest thing. There was a lady that did a YouTube video the other day. All they have to do is ask. We'll talk to them. I tell people I will talk to anybody. There was a little Uber Eats driver that he has a little podcast show. And he said, will you do my podcast show? And I said, if you got 2 followers, I'll talk to you. And we did it while he was doing his job. And it's very rough. And we're so thankful for him. And that is on our list of podcasts that I did. Mr.
Well,
Campo.
I've got amazing friends on this platform and on TikTok, and I have told them all, please share, just get the story out there.
Please tell Kay Alana's story because we have to get national coverage. If we don't get national coverage, and it's so hard to be here and watch them cover the story of missing people from other areas, but we're thankful that they're covering those stories. The Caleb Harris that's missing in Corpus Christi, his story deserves to be told. The boy that's missing
Sebastian
in
Rogers,
Nashville, that's missing in Nashville, his story deserves to be told. His family deserves to have his story out there. Kay Alana's story deserves to be told.
Right.
It deserves to be told.
Right. Well, when I get through here, I'll be tagging all of them in the description. So
Thank you.
They'll get them tagged somehow or another. Because they need to talk about it. We need her out there. Somebody has seen something.
Yeah.
Something. We need something. We just need to know. We need the good and the bad and the ugly. We just need to know it.
The other thing we want to make sure that everybody knows is that Kay speaks fluent Spanish. She speaks like a native. She doesn't stumble on her words when she's speaking Spanish. And I wonder if she may be with a Spanish speaking family, but we have had no coverage from the Spanish community because we don't speak Spanish.
Right.
So we've had no coverage from the Spanish speaking community. And if she was hit in her head, she may not even realize that she speaks English. If the first thing she heard was Spanish, she may just think that's her language.
Right. She could have had some kind of break to where she has amnesia now, where she doesn't know who she is. We don't know. That's the thing is we've got to find her so that we can figure out what's going on and deal with the legal. We'll deal with the legal things. They are what they are. That can be dealt with, but we just want her.
Yeah.
We just want her. And, so I have some of my friends. We're going to be looking. I'll find us a Spanish-speaking community because I can't speak Spanish. My daddy was Indian, and he looked Hispanic. So they would come. We grew up in Corpus Christi, and they would come up to him and just start talking. He would go, "Yeah, I don't know," and I can't speak a lick of it.
Yeah, she used to drive us crazy because she would walk around the house and she would like look at us and talk to us in Spanish, and we would go,
"Oh
no, we don't understand."
The best I could do is pig Latin.
But the worst part is not having a clue and not having help. That has been our struggle. We have the Facebook page updates for Kay Alana Turner where it has like 15,000 people following it. We need more people following it. Just because
I'll drop the link in the chat. I'm going to add it to the description. That way people can.
If you put the link tree in there, it will we've got several of the podcasts and several things done, but I have done multiple interviews that never even got published.
Oh, no.
I have done news stories for the Houston Chronicle. They decided not to
they're hiding
carry
it.
story. You know,
Yeah, they're hiding.
there's been stuff like that. I'm not gonna stop telling Kay Alana's story just because somebody doesn't.
Well, and I didn't want to add the Harris County phone number in my thing for the call, but technically that's.
Well, make Texas Equasearch the prominent number.
Texas Equasearch.
They're the ones.
They are number one. And I'm going to tell you the saddest part about it is that once we couldn't have the phone number for Texas Equasearch and we couldn't have the phone number for Harris County and we had to put my phone number on there, there are some cruel people out there. There are some people that all they want to do is break your heart and all they want to do is extort you. And that is the biggest tragedy of this too, is that there are so many families that they are looking for any information about their daughter. And then you've got these trolls, these people that are just trying to extort them.
They're very cruel on the internet. Very cruel.
It's not cool.
So if anybody has questions for Robbie and Rosa, let us know. We'll ask some questions real quick before I let them go so they can get some rest. They have had some busy weeks. They are exhausted.
Yeah, we had 4 interviews last week, and so
I was just letting her rest. She managed to text me this day. I was like, well, I was going to talk about it, but if y'all want to come on, because I didn't want to pester you because I know you're tired.
Yeah, if there's an opportunity for us to talk about Kay Alana, we're going to come and
because I was just going to cover it, and then when you could, I was going to bring you back. Because I'm just like, I just want her story out there.
Because we feel like that there a lot of times this has happened with YouTubers. Lord and Arts, he did it, and he had put in some of his own opinion of, oh, maybe she was this or maybe she was that. And I contacted him and I said, look, what you're saying, what you have thought in your mind and you just made up as a scenario is not what happened, and we would love to talk to you. And he said, you know what, I'm going to cut that out of it, the story. And he did. He cut his opinion out because you can't help when you're not when you're not talking to people. It's easy for you to try to add stuff to make time and everything, but sometimes the stuff you add doesn't have anything to do with that person, you know. Right.
And I'm really funny about covering current cases when it comes to true crime, because I don't ever want to give something that can be construed as fact when it's not. It's an opinion, and so I have a hard time with it, and I would love to because there's so many of them going on, but it just makes me uneasy. And that's why I was like, I have studied everything y'all have put out there, and I have a notebook full of notes. I was ready to tell the story.
Kay would be proud of you. Kay would be proud of you because she always makes notebooks. But
we're not even lying.
Yeah. So for us, you know, we'll talk to anybody because we want to get the truth out. We had somebody that just the other day just obliterated. It was so terrible, and I'm heartbroken. And so I'm answering in the comments because I'm checking daily to see if somebody has put up a story about Kay Alana on YouTube. I'm checking to see because I want to make sure that it's factual, that it has the truth, that it's telling the truth. And there was one, the lady actually cut off comments on it after we commented and said, you have this all wrong, please contact us. And I emailed her and she didn't contact us. I will talk to anybody. When I say I will talk to anybody, I will talk to anybody. If you have 2 followers, if it's your mama and your grandma following you, call me. I will talk to you. I will tell you Kay Alana's story. I will tell you.
We're going to keep getting her story out there until we have answers. And I give you guys my word for that. And I have some very good friends on this platform that I will make sure I will pester them till they do it.
Thank you.
But I will let you guys go for tonight. Thank you guys so much for coming. And my heart is with you. And
thank you.
We'll find answers. Harris County needs to be held accountable. Now I'm ticked off at Harris County. I'm not even going to lie. Ticked.
Well, we just want to find our daughter, and if
we'll worry about the rest of it after the fact.
If there's accountability, then we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Well, thank you guys, and y'all have a good night.
Night.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All righty, guys. What are y'all thinking? Breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. Yeah, Ellen Dragon. It just I have scoured over everything this week on everything that's been put out to see everything that they've said and the story and all of the facts, and I have cried, and she had me in tears, and I held it back. I did good, guys. I didn't cry. I had tears, but I didn't ugly cry. It was hard because I wanted to. Bitch talks. I'm angry. I'm so fucking angry with Harris County. So angry. I need to see if she'll give me those videos, and I'll make a video. I will freaking. You don't think I won't be tagging Harris County? I'm going to be tagging Harris County. Its own. I have to be careful. I'll be going over there and they'll be arrested my ass. I have to go to the doctor in Harris County. That's where my main doctors are. Oh, what a story. What a story. Oh, alrighty, guys. I will let you all get to your Friday night. Have a good night. This has hints of Crystal Rogers' case. It does. Yeah, Ellen Dragon, it does. They labeled her a certain way and didn't bother changing those labels, and so nobody's paying attention. I still don't understand how no dogs found her scent, how she wasn't, no scraps of clothing pulled off in the trees, no blood trail, no nothing. She just poofed into thin air. Just is weird. So weird. So, alrighty, guys. I'll hop off of here. It's a Friday night. I don't like to do Friday night lives because I know everybody has things they're doing in the area and with their families. It's Friday. What time of year are we? It's not football season, so we're not doing high school football. Ellen Dragon, you're in the next county. Yeah, we're like 2 hours. There's a whole bunch of counties between us and them, but I mean, I go to Houston. I go to Harris County, go to Houston area for my doctors. Tomball and all of that is like 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. It's 4 hours to Austin. So I don't know. I'm so worried. I'm so worried. But you guys have a great night. Thank y'all for joining me. And I'm working on my closing videos and all that because YouTube now gives me a hard time because I'm monetized. So I have to have things with specific music. So anyways, I worked for Tommy years ago. Oh, wow. Well, I was hoping Dana would join us tonight. I need to email and see how they're doing. You know, they had to send their puppy over the Rainbow Bridge the other night. So still heartbreaking for them. But I will let you guys all go. You all have a great night. And I'm looking for the video I just made. And a great weekend. Enjoy your families. Again, you know, we had the talk on Monday. Mental health is important. Hug your babies. Hug your babies, even the adult ones. I plan on hugging mine this weekend. Because it's just too sad. Alrighty, guys. Good night. Y'all have a great one.